Defying spending caps set by Congress in 2011, known as the sequester, President Obama on Monday submitted a proposal on what he thinks the federal government should do with its money in 2016.
My budget will end sequestration and fully reverse the cuts to domestic priorities in 2016. And it will match the investments that were made domestically, dollar for dollar, with increases in our defense funding.
The proposal solicits $534 billion for the base defense budget and $51 billion in war funding, most of which would go towards Afghanistan, counterterrorism operations, and continue regular benefits for active military. Some say it's worth it.
If you're sacrificing your life, I feel like you deserve, the best.
If the amount is necessary to keep us safe, I think it's appropriate.
However, the proposed budget requests $38 billion more in military spending than is currently permitted by law.
Many Americans would agree with, spending a lot on the defense budget, but when you put it in context, they may not realize that some of those other things are getting crowded out.
Other things like education or healthcare. Unlike the war fund, which isn't subject to spending caps, discretionary spending on domestic initiatives is limited, period.
As defense spending grows, it crowds out domestic funding for other things, for things like Head Start, things like programs that regular people need. And the domestic doesn't necessarily have the very nice war funding account that they can sort of move things over into.
President Obama's proposal also calls for a boost of what his administration calls middle-class economics in the 21st century, public works projects outlined in the State of the Union that would require tax cuts, tax hikes, and likely won't get past Republicans in Congress without a fight. In Washington, Alexandra Hall, teleSUR.
Gladys Kinka grows golden berries at a plot next to her family home outside of Quito. Previously in the condition of extreme poverty, Gladys received a $500 credit last year to begin her business, now supplying golden berries to a national supplier. She is one of the 103,000 citizens in the Pichincha province, previously categorized as experiencing extreme poverty, earning $44 per month, who has now come out of this condition.
I was not in good economic shape because I was sick. So to start the farm, they told me that I needed a credit. I got a credit and began planting golden berries. I bought everything that I needed to begin this, and the economic conditions of my family and well-being of my children has since improved.
As part of the National Development Goals of Good Living and coordination with the provincial government, the 6.2% poverty rate in 2006 fell to 1.9% in 2014. Through the Human Development Credit and professional training programs, families like that of Gladys now have the necessary support and tools to continue moving forward.
Yo tengo 2,600 plantas.
I have 2,600 plants. I give them to a company called Tierra Fertile. They are the ones who sold us the plants with the idea that we would hand over our product to them. So we have an organic operation which allows us to transport this produce.
The Citizens' Revolution has made it a priority to eliminate extreme poverty by 2017. Through its effective cooperation with the national government, Pichincha has been recognized as the first province to meet national poverty reduction goals.
What we see is the reducing of poverty and inequality. We know that this is not due to the patching up of the problem, nor to short-term welfare, but to policies that have effectively made local economies more dynamic, to policies that have generated work, that have created dignified employment.
Through sustainable governmental policies allowing families to independently improve their conditions, Pichincha is setting the standard for the other 23 provinces to effectively work towards eliminating extreme poverty by 2017. Liz Sherfias, teleSUR, Ecuador.
Colombia's peace talks between the government and the FARC have resumed in Havana, Cuba. During this 32nd round of negotiations, both parties are scheduled to discuss a major topic: victims and justice. For lawyer Gustavo Gallón, it is crucial to fully understand justice, which implies the right of victims not just to sanctions, but also to compensation and guarantees of non-repetition and truth.
The right to sanctions is the one related to punishments. Usually when people think about justice, they think exclusively about punishment, which is just one of the 5 rights that are part of the right to justice. The conclusion they draw when they talk about the right to punishment is a mistaken conclusion because they forget about other things.
Punishments and impunity have been controversial topics among the public. However, Gallon warns that the discussion on justice and victims can definitely not be reduced to just punishment. Within this context, he also points out as a very positive step the fact that different groups of victims have already been in Havana directly participating on the negotiations.
The issue of sanctions should never be the starting point of the discussion, but rather the conclusion. So where should we start? With the need for recognition of damage caused by both the state and the guerrillas, a genuine request for forgiveness, and a generous offer of compensation.
Political analyst Alfredo Molano also agrees that the participation of victims is progress for the peace process. He also underlined the FARC unilateral ceasefire as a gesture that has led to a growing feeling of confidence among Colombians.
This new round of negotiations is very advanced because the opposition to the peace process is very much discredited due to a range of factors. Officials have fled the country, military generals that have been removed, so I think prospects are very promising.
Victims, justice, and a bilateral and definitive ceasefire will be at the center of talks during this 32nd round of Colombia's peace negotiations. Meanwhile, expectations are running high as the topic to be addressed in Havana, Cuba are directly related to the end of the conflict in this Latin American country. From Bogotá, Natalia Margarita, teleSUR.
The news of approval of same-sex civil unions in neighboring Chile have inspired Peruvian LGBT rights groups to speak up against the lack of progress to approve a similar law in the country.
It's inconceivable for them to not want to do it. We are asking for something that is just, something that all of Latin America is doing. It's basically already approved in Brazil, Colombia, Ecuador, Uruguay, and Argentina. Peru is stuck behind with the latest countries that do not recognize any type of rights for same-sex couples.
In Congress, the issue is largely considered controversial, with some representatives defending LGBT people as a discriminated minority, but many others are worried about the opinion of the general public, which overall takes a conservative stance.
There is a law being prepared by the Commission of Justice that is under discussion by this parliament, but there are 3 or 4 additional projects that will be added to that debate.
In other parts of the world, they are probably advancing more than here, but Peruvian society, because of its past and its traditions, is moving very slowly on this issue.
Congress will convene in March, and LGBT groups are planning a series of demonstrations to pressure them to pass a civil union law. For Valentine's Day, they will hold a mock same-sex wedding ceremony in public, and on February 15th, they will have a demonstration with hundreds of homosexual couples kissing in front of the president's palace. Reporting from Lima, Peru for teleSUR, Rael Mora.
Oscar Arnulfo Romero was the Catholic Archbishop of San Salvador when he was shot dead in 1980. Romero is known in Central America as the voice of the voiceless for all the support he gave to rebel forces that fought against a military dictatorship during the worst days of the Civil War. As the head of the Salvadorian Church, he accused the regime of the murder of priests, teachers, and hundreds of citizens. Pope Francis has approved a martyrdom declaration to set the stage for the beatification of Romero.
This is very important because people will be more devoted. It is a joy that the Pope is visiting us. People already believe in Romero and ask him for favors or miracles.
The declaration of a Central American as a martyr is a historical event in the region. Some believe it will give added strength to the Catholic Church, which has seen declining numbers in the recent decades. Others believe that it is also a political message which will strengthen the Catholic left, which Romero was a symbol of. Gerardo Torres, teleSUR, Central America.